Good day, students, and this is your instructor, Mr. Daniel R. Garbo. And today, as we tackle our subject, Living in the IT Era, we will be discussing another lesson. So, for our lesson today, we will be talking about technological change. So, the electronic digital computer has had and continues to have a profound impact not only on business and science but on society in general. History studies are extremely useful in evaluating that impacts and understanding the process of changes that leads to even more advanced technologies. In the words of the philosopher George Santayan, those who not learn from history are destined to repeat it. That is, without a keen understanding of past developments, we will find ourselves continually reinventing the wheel in a philosophical sense. So this means that as we proceed to improve our way of life, our technology must also improve along with it. Okay? And katulad nga nung sinabi ni George Santayan, those who not learn from history are destined to repeat it. So, for us to be able to proceed with our evolution, with our innovations, okay, with the changes and the developments and the updates in the technology or the things that are around us, we must first determine or be familiar with where do these technologies belong or where do these technologies started from. Okay, so we should learn the history of the evolution of technology. So for our lesson one, we will be talking about basic computing periods. So under the computing periods, we've had many technologies that we've used, and the first ever technology used for computing is the abacus. Okay? So hindi lang naman abacus yung kauna-unahan, but it is the first organized technology. Okay? So abacus that was developed in China during the year or during the 20th century AD. Okay? So we all know that using abacus we can perform basic operations. Okay? Then we have the Napier's bones. Napier's bones, it is used or it is a tool that was early used for logarithm. So under the Napier's bones or with the help of the Napier's bones, we are able to proceed with bigger results. Unlike abacus that only provides us with a minimal quantity, we can now use big quantities or big results or uh, millions and trillions of quantities using the Napier's bones. So, Napier's bones ang tawag sa kanya because the tool here uses bones or ivory to create the tool. Okay? Then we have the O-threads slide rule. So, this is a kind or this seems like a ruler that has a slider, and once we use it for computation, we can simply use the slider. Okay, it was developed by William Oughtred during the 17th century. Then we have the Pascal's calculator. It was developed by Blaise Pascal in the year 1965. So, as we all know, Blaise Pascal developed the uh, Pascal's triangle. Okay, then we have the Leibniz calculator. It was developed by Gottfried Leibniz in the year 1964. All these tools are used for basic computing. Okay? And this aided the past humans to uh, work with large computations or large addition, subtractions, multiplications, and divisions. Okay, then we have the Babbage's analytical engine. It was developed by Charles Babbage in the year 19th century. And for the last one, we have the Hollerith's punch card machine. It was developed by Hermann Hollerith in the year 1880. So for us to be able to clearly understand that, we have here our tools. So these are the basic computing tools for the basic computing periods. We have the abacus, then we have the Napier's bone, we have here the slide rule, then we have here the punch machine, the Leibniz calculator, the Pascal's calculator, and the uh, Babbage's machine. Okay, so these are the different shifts of the computing tools for the computing periods. Okay, and as per now, we uses a diverse tool for computing. We now have different kinds of calculators. We even have computers, wherein our computers nowadays are very functional. It can work multiple functions at the same time. Okay? Then for lesson 2, we have the generations of computers. So there are 5 generations for computers. So for the first generation, these are early computers. They use vacuum tubes as circuitry and magnetic drums for memory. And as a result, they were enormous, large, literally taking up entire rooms and costing a fortune to run. So yung first generation natin, those are big computers. So isang buong room ang kaya nilang sakupin. Isang buong room. Isang buong kwarto. Buong kwartong yon, that's just one computer. So they uses glass tubes. And it can only function with one function at a time so that it will not overheat. Okay? So mahal siya, then mabagal, and mabilis din mag-overheat. Okay, then for the second generation, they were a big improvement over the vacuum tube, despite still subjecting a computers to damaging levels of heat. However, they still relied on punch card for input or printouts. So for the second generation, mas maliit na siya ng konti. They no longer uses vacuum tube para mas mapaliit yung computers. However, uh, gumagamit pa rin ng punch cards. Okay, so as you can still remember the Holridge punch machine. So that's one computing tool, and it uses punch cards. So it uses punch cards to give out inputs, or to go to take in inputs and give out printouts. Okay? Then for the third generation, these were the first computers where users interacted using keyboards and monitors, which interfaced with an operating system, a significant leap up from the punch cards and printouts. This enabled these machines to run several applications at once using a central program which functioned to monitor memory. So for the third generation, these are the oldest computers that we all know. So meron na silang keyboard, may monitor na. However, the operating system is still very basic. So kaya na din naman yung mag-function ng multiple functions at a time, and it can already monitor its memory. But as we compare it to what we have now, so syempre napakabagal pa rin yan ng third generation. Then the fourth generation, so computer processor were for a long period constructed out of small and medium scale ICs containing the equivalent of a few hundred transistors. The integration of the whole CPU onto a single chip therefore greatly reduced the cost of processing capacity. So for the fourth generation, it now uses chips. So it now uses chips for its CPU. It now uses different transistors to operate. Okay? So, mas mabilis na siya, mas mabilis na yung processing nito, mas compact na rin siya compared to the old generations. Okay? And the cost for processing capacity is reduced as well. So, mas mura na siya kumpara sa first, second, and third generation. Okay? And mas functional na rin siya. Then, for the last one, the fifth generation, we have the computer devices with artificial intelligence. So, they are still in development, but some of these technologies are beginning to emerge and be used, such as voice recognition. So, for the fifth generation, those are computers that uses artificial intelligences. So, kung mapapansin nyo, every tool around us now or every technologies around us now uses artificial intelligence. So, madami na yung gumagamit ng artificial intelligence. Mahal sila when we talk about uh, our budget, they cost too much. Okay? Pero kung para pa rin sa first generation, na millions and billions ang presyo nung ginawa. So, mas mura pa rin ang fifth generation. Okay, so, ang maganda sa fifth generation, we can now operate with this one using voice operations, or it can now operate by simply recognizing some functions that we have input from it. Okay? So that is the generations of computers. So these are the different computers from first to fourth generation. So for the first generation, we have the first electromechanical computer here. It's in the year 1942. It's so big, as you can see. Then 1951 to 1958. So we have the first commercial automatic computers, meaning this was already being sold for the public use. So ganyan pa rin kalaki. Okay, then the second generation were created the transistors and magnetic type, and this began to replace punch cards as external storage devices. So mas maliit na kung titingnan nyo. You can now hold it with your fingers, unlike this one na nasa isang buong kwarto. Then for the third generation, so appeared the integrated circuits. So ito na yon. So magnetic core, internal memories began to give way to new form, metal oxide semiconductor or MOS memory, which like integrated circuits use silicon-backed chips. Okay, so ito na itsura ng third generation natin na computer. Then for the fourth generation, ito naabutan na natin lahat to. So integrated circuits or ICs were large scale. The microprocessors appeared in the houses like PCs, a very easy language software. So ito na yung fourth generation natin. Okay, yung fifth generation, you cannot see it here for the meantime because it is still under development. Okay, so they are still studying about artificial intelligences and how to improve that generation of microprocessors or of that computer. Okay. So let's have our fact check. So today we have learned that the abacus is known as early computing tool where logarithm was invented. The first generation computer in this generation was expensive and bulky, and it used machine language for computing and could solve problem at a time. So computer during this phase could not support multitasking task. Then during the second generation, transistor made computers smaller and cheaper. They made computers energy efficient. And during the third generation, semiconductors increased its speed and efficiency of the computer. In 1971, Intel produced large-scale integration recognition circuit. And for the last one, computer system under fifth generation is based on principles of artificial intelligence and natural language recognition. Okay? Then, if you have no more question, let us have
Computers, one of the best ideas humans ever came up with. They went from big machines for simple calculations to having all of that and much more in a small device that fits in your pocket. And it's only getting better and better as time passes. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at how computers took over the world. But before we do, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to support the channel. But for now, here is a brief video on the history and evolution of computers. Although computing seemed like a relatively modern invention, computing actually dates back to the early 1800s. And throughout computing history, there has not been a lone inventor or a single first computer. The invention of the computer was incremental, with dozens of scientists and mathematicians building on their predecessors. So in this video, we're going to be starting the evolution of the computer from the 1930s. The 1930s marked the beginning of calculating machines, which were considered the first programmable computer. Konrad Zuse created what became known as the first programmable computer, the Z1, in 1936 in his parents' living room in Berlin. He assembled metal plates, pins and old film, creating a machine that could easily add and subtract. Although his early models were destroyed in World War II, Zeus is credited with creating the first digital computer. In the 1940s, computers took up entire rooms like the ENIAC, which was once called the mathematical robot. John Mauchly created the ENIAC during World War II to help the army with ballistic analytics. The machine could calculate thousands of problems each second. The large-scale ENIAC weighed 30 tons and needed a 1,500 square foot room to house the 40 cabinets, 6,000 switches, and 18,000 vacuum tubes that comprised the machine. Some called this invention the beginning of the computer age. In the 1950s, computers were strictly used for scientific and engineering research, like the GEMOEDIT, which was once described as a helpful assistant for mathematicians. The GEMOEDIT was completed in 1954 and was used by RAND researchers. The massive machine weighed just over 2 tons with over 5,000 vacuum tubes. This early computer operated for 13 years or 51,349 hours before being dismantled in the 1960s. But everything changed when the Programmer 101 became the first desktop computer sold to the average consumer. Up until 1965, computers were reserved for mathematicians and engineers in a lab setting. The Programmer 101 changed everything by offering the general public a desktop computer that anyone could use. The 65-pound machine was the size of a typewriter and had 37 keys and a built-in printer. As personal computers became popular in the 1970s, the Xerox Alto helped pave the way for Steve Jobs' Apple. The Xerox Alto was created in the 70s as a personal computer that could print documents and send emails. What is most notable about the computer was its design, which included a mouse, keyboard, and a screen. This state-of-the-art design would later influence the Apple design. In the 80s, Apple's Macintosh was described as a game-changer for the computer industry. When Steve Jobs introduced the first Macintosh computer in 1984, Consumer Reports called it a dazzling display of technical wizardry. The Macintosh had a keyboard, a mouse, and a small 9-inch screen. The computer, which weighed in at 22 pounds and cost $2,495, was applauded for its interface of windows and icons, as the 90s marked a period of self-expression. Apple released the famous iMac G3, which was customizable. The iMac G3 was launched in 1998, after Steve Jobs returned to Apple in 1997. The computer quickly became known for its Bondi blue clear casing. The 38-pound iMac included USB ports, a keyboard, and a mouse. It was meant to be portable and customizable. In the early 2000s, laptops became increasingly popular, especially after Apple launched its MacBook Air. And in 2008, Steve Jobs slid the first MacBook Air from a manila envelope and shocked everyone at Apple's Macworld with how thin the laptop was, measuring only 0.76 inch thick. This expertly designed laptop changed the industry forever. Apple got rid of the CD drive and only included a USB port and a headphone jack. At the time, the minimalistic device cost $1,799, and today, computers come in all shapes and sizes, including tablets. Today's most innovative computer are tablets, which are simple touchscreens, without a keyboard and a mouse. But even though tablet sales are on the decline, 33 million tablets were sold in 2018. And the market is also filled with other computer models, including the MacBook Pro, iMac, Dell, XPS, and iPhones. So that was a brief history of the evolution of computers. We covered the most important key moments that changed how we use computers today. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And leave a comment below, tell us what evolution you want us to cover next, and hit that notification bell to stay updated when we upload new videos. Thanks for watching.
So that is a video from EvoChronicles about the evolution of computer. Okay, so I hope that you will be able to reflect on that video and the lessons that we have discussed. If you have more questions, simply write down your questions on the comment box below so that we will be able to clarify all those questions as we proceed with our discussion. And for your activity, for your task this week, so you should make an infographic timeline of the basic computing periods. So you should make a timeline, okay? An infographic timeline, meaning you should make an image of that timeline. Your output can be a digital image, okay? So pwedeng digital editing, okay? Image editing yung gawin nyo to create your infographics. Then you can also use PowerPoint presentation or a traditional artwork. Kung walang magamit na tools sa computer or mas gamay nyo na gumamit ng traditional method. So you can use traditional artwork or you can make a traditional artwork such as poster, drawing, and or painting. Then be sure to submit the picture or the file of your work in the ILU portal on or before 5:30 p.m. of February 4, 2022. Take note that late submissions with no valid reasons will not be entertained. And for the scoring rubrics, so still we will be using this rubric. The clarity of content will give you 20 points, creativity 20 points, timeliness 10 points, and that has a total of 50 points. Okay? So if you have no more questions about our discussion, thank you for watching. I hope that you learned a lot. Okay, I would also like to thank GemoEdits for the template of the PowerPoint, and of course EvoChronicles for the video that was embedded in this lesson. And that's all for now. I hope that you are all well and healthy. Always keep safe.